Andrew Cuomo resigns. So now what for the Empire State? The Anti-Vax meme spreading on social media that has to do with an old Will Smith movie. And what's holding up NASA's return to the moon? Turns out it's the spacesuits. Wednesday, Need to Know. Let's go. Good morning. This is Cheddar's Need to Know podcast for Wednesday, August 11th. I'm Jill Wagner with Carlo Versano. Holy News Day, Carlo. Good morning.
Man, August, the dumbest month, as we say, right? But yeah, a lot of news today. A lot of news yesterday.
Let's just get right to it. Andrew Cuomo is resigning as governor of New York effective in 2 weeks amid his growing sexual harassment scandal. The lieutenant governor, Kathy Hochul, will be sworn in as the first female governor in the history of the state. In his resignation speech, Cuomo highlighted his achievements over his 3 terms and maintained that he never acted improperly with any of the 11 women who accused him of harassment, saying that he was the victim of a politically motivated controversy. Carlo, I think a lot of people thought that he was just going to wait it out and fight impeachment, which he said, if you watched his speech yesterday, that was his political instinct. But ultimately, he decided that just wasn't going to happen. And he clearly determined that leaving now could conceivably keep at least some of his legacy intact. Wow. I was on air for a lot of this, and the way that it played out yesterday was incredible because we heard that Cuomo might be speaking. First, his lawyer came out and went through that AG report and basically tried to poke holes in each of the women's testimony from there. So you didn't think that this was even on the table, his resignation.
Yeah.
And then he came out a short while later. The first half of his speech was really in defense of himself. And he did say, look, clearly the line has changed in terms of what's appropriate in the way that men and women, deal with each other. But, and then it just took this 180 where he said he was going to resign. He said, look, there's a lot of work to be done. Government, this is a really challenging time. And the best thing I could do for the state of New York is to step aside and allow that work to continue. And I agree with him, actually. And I don't know. Talk to me. What are your thoughts?
No, well, first of all, I think what you said is true. Usually when these things go down, they get leaked first, right? So you get a report in one of the major papers saying they're going to resign. They schedule a news conference for later in the day. This happened right away. I got the flash, and then I turned on the TV, and he was already speaking. So yeah, it was definitely shocking in just sort of and I had originally thought he was going to leave, and then I was like, it seems to me like at this point he's just going to wait out the impeachment if for no other reason, frankly, keep the paycheck and keep the digs at the governor's mansion. I mean, he doesn't have another place to live.
Right, he needs to find a new house, yeah.
Yeah, seriously. So you need a couple of weeks to do that. I think it also keeps him from being barred from office should he have been impeached, so he could conceivably mount a comeback. Crazier things have happened, right?
Well, look, by the way, that is not off the table, though, that the lawmakers in Albany are going to move forward with impeachment. So it's possible that the same way in D.C. that they move forward with trying to impeach President Trump even after office, there is a lot of talk that they may move forward with that. I mean, look, that could change, though, as time goes on, and I don't think the public has an appetite for it.
I don't want my money spent on that.
Or the money for it, by the way.
Yeah,
I mean, New York State does not have that. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So, yeah, watching this, it was a very weird resignation speech. Having watched a lot of resignation speeches, this was one of the weirder ones. And I was just thinking about what his dad would have thought, Mario Cuomo, who, in my opinion, one of the great governors of this state, just for his son to go down like this. But here's the thing with Cuomo, and I have no love lost for him, right? I think he's pretty clearly a creep, maybe even more than a creep. He pretty clearly made serious mistakes during COVID, maybe even worse. But he didn't know how to operate the levers of government. Say what you will about him. He was a master political operator. And Kathy Hochul, I know for a fact, she does not and is not that. And it's not even necessarily her fault. She and Cuomo, we know for a fact, don't even speak to each other. I've heard of people in Albany in politics who say they've never even seen her. So it's not like she's Joe Biden to Cuomo's Barack Obama, right? This woman is going to go from being basically a nobody to getting dropped in to run point on a convergence of crises in a very economically important state. And hey, maybe she's brilliant. I don't know enough about her. Maybe she'll be the best governor we ever had. I hope so. But it's still going to be a mess, and it's going to be a mess for a very long time. And we, the taxpayers, of course, will be the losers, as we always are. And I'm not saying he shouldn't have resigned. I think it was pretty clear that's what was going to be the outcome here. But just to your point the other day about like when these politicians get ensnared in these stupid sex scandals, which is what they are, they're stupid, right? It makes the business of government seize up, whether they stay or whether they decide to go. It's just so selfish. It's like the epitome of selfishness if you're a public servant. And for what? For what? It's just such a waste. It's a waste of talent. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of everything.
Look, regarding Kathy Hochul, let's give her a chance. I mean, I don't know. Maybe
Sure.
you have sources that have told you others, but I mean,
I'm willing to give her a chance.
Look, Barack Obama became president with relatively very little experience.
And it showed.
Well, okay, but I'm just saying, I just think let's give her a chance because she does have a ton of experience in government. She was in Congress briefly, so she's from Western New York, Buffalo. She describes herself as an independent Democrat. And let's hope that she rises to this occasion because there are a lot of challenges right now. She's going to be thrown right in. There's a budget crisis, a health crisis, and who knows what else is on the horizon. It could be a short-lived gig, though, because no doubt the Attorney General, Letitia James, is eyeing that governor mansion.
Yep. Oh, you better believe it. It's also very good for Eric Adams, the new mayor of New York City, who will now have some leverage over Albany, which is usually not how those things work, as we saw with Cuomo and de Blasio. De Blasio, by the way, having the summer of his life out there.
It is incredible, though, just how quickly, you pointed this out a couple weeks ago, just the reversal of fortune. These two used to butt heads, and it drove us crazy because there was real actionable information that we needed, and de Blasio would come out at 11 a.m. with something, and then 2 hours later, Cuomo would come out. It was just like so juvenile.
You remember those days? Oh my God, that was just pull my hair out.
But could we also just quickly discuss what the heck is going on in New York with New York politics? I mean, you've got Elliot Spitzer, who had his prostitution scandal. Then David Patterson, he basically didn't run again because he was embroiled in controversy. And now Cuomo. Can we just get someone who kind of keeps their hands clean here?
It would be nice, Jill, from your lips.
Okay, now let's talk a little bit about what's going on with COVID. Some data now to back up what we were talking about yesterday with respect to the Delta wave's impact on kids. COVID cases among children clearly on the rise. They now account for about 15% of newly reported cases nationwide as of last week. About 94,000 cases in kids were reported this week, up from 72,000 the week before and 39,000 the week before that. So the big question is the Delta variant actually making kids sicker than the original strain? It is still unclear, although the data suggests that severe illness and hospitalization still pretty rare for children. But the reports of kids getting sick with COVID are worrisome, as we mentioned yesterday, and the effects of long COVID in kids is still something that we don't really know enough about, because what it appears just anecdotally that what happens in some of these cases is that these kids do have relatively mild cases, and that the real impact winds up presenting itself weeks later, which is really, really scary as you're talking about children.
Yeah, no, it really is. I just wish we knew more, but I guess that's one of those things we can't really know more until there's more data.
And I don't want to get too CDC? I feel like the CDC has just been has just dropped the 8 ball with basically all data.
Everything.
Can you tell us, please, how many breakthrough infections there are? How good are these vaccines? Like, there is not information. All of our information has been coming, by the way, from Israel and the UK. And that is the data that we have. The CDC has not, I don't get it. I don't understand what they're doing right now.
Well, it's just like we've been saying, there's just no excuse at this point anymore. I know that this thing is still a novel virus and we're still learning a lot about it, but the messaging, there's no excuse for it to be this poor at this point in the game. But I don't want to get too hopeful here. I know I always say you got to look at the 7-day moving average, which is true. I just want to point out that it could be The cases are starting to plateau. Testing is up, and the positivity rate is on the decline for the first time of this Delta wave. So let's keep our fingers crossed, and we'll keep monitoring it, of course. The thing that's going to be tricky, I think, is that this wave, just based on how past waves in India and the UK were with this variant, it could be that it peaks just as people are starting to come back from vacation, going back to work, back to the office, back to school, which you'd think is going to drive another surge, right? If it doesn't, that's going to be very good news. But if it does, I think it means we're going to be in for a very tough fall. Or it could just be sort of a repeat of last year, right, where we see the epicenter move around from the south. Now it's in the southwest, or maybe it goes to the northeast as it starts to get colder up here. But the thing is, the northeast is much more vaccinated than those other regions. So I don't think under any circumstance we're going to get those kind of hospitalization and death numbers up here, at least.
Meanwhile, one of the more prominent anti-vax memes circulating on social media is the claim that COVID vaccines could turn people into the zombies from the 2007 movie I Am Legend. In that post-apocalyptic thriller, a genetically reprogrammed measles virus turns most of the planet into bloodthirsty zombie vampires that stalk Will Smith around a desolate New York City. Now the film's screenwriter wants to make clear that in addition to having nothing to do with the vaccines, the plot of the movie is fictional, that he made it up. Jeez.
Oh my, Jill, we are so screwed. So yeah, Akiva Goldsman, the screenwriter of that film, tweeted a response to a New York Times story that went viral yesterday, in which an anonymous person in the Bronx was cited as saying that they wouldn't get the vaccines out of fear of what happened in that movie. Goldsman tweeting, "Oh my God, it's a movie. I made that up. It's not real," end quote. So God help us. Although I have to say that was a great movie.
I laughed out loud when I read this in our newsletter actually today. Look, Andy Slavitt, I know I've been quoting his tweets a lot. I just want to mention
he's a good tweeter.
This one tweet that he said, and this is not about the meme, but he talked about for people who go out and buy fake vaccine cards. He says, if people who go out and buy fake vaccine cards get COVID, do they expect someone to put them on a real ventilator? You know, it's one
That's
of those things.
thing.
Because here's it's like, you don't want to get the vaccine. Okay, the data is so overwhelmingly clear that people who are vaccinated are really not getting severely ill and ending up in the hospital. And if they're in the hospital, it's a brief stay. They're not getting intubated and whatever. You know, we all pay the price in terms of taxpayer money and in terms of the hospitals filling up. When you have basically, when now states are being told once again that they can't do elective surgeries, and like we talk about elective surgeries and everyone thinks, oh, someone's getting a facelift. No, there are elective surgeries is a broad range of things. One of my dad's friends who has cancer actually, it came back and now he's not doing well. And in part, he was because of just the lack of care during this time. This is what we're talking about here. And it's like we all suffer as a society, and I know I don't want to get into the whole mask thing, but there's an idea here of look, you have your individual responsibility, and it's like, okay, I'm going to take care of myself. But I think this virus has shown us it's a societal obligation to do everything you can to make sure that this virus stays under control, because there are ripple effects that affect all of us.
Absolutely, Joe. Absolutely. And by the way, on the vaccine cards, I saw that story in the Associated Press the other day about people paying $400 for fake vaccine cards. Are you in? You can get a free one. You can get a free vaccine card, and it also has the effect of keeping you alive. Oh.
In Washington, as expected, the Senate easily passed President Biden's infrastructure bill with 19 Republicans, including Senator Mitch McConnell, joining all 50 Democrats in endorsing the $1 trillion package. That makes the bill one of the most bipartisan major pieces of legislation in decades. Separately, Senate Democrats approved a $3.5 trillion budget resolution, setting the stage for inter-party negotiations to pass that bill without Republican support.
Yeah, as we said, Biden cannot afford to lose a single Democratic senator on that one. So this is going to be a grind, probably take months, I would guess. And that $3.5 trillion number is not going to be the final number. It's surely going to be slashed. The infrastructure bill, of course, now heads back to the House, which is actually cutting its summer recess short to take up that legislation. They're now going to come back on August 23rd. Progressives in the House say they're not going to vote on the infrastructure bill until the House approves the budget bill. while moderate Democrats say they want a standalone vote on the infrastructure bill. So whether Biden can hold those two groups together, probably going to be his biggest political challenge to date.
Okay, how is this for a marriage of convenience? Saks Fifth Avenue is going to be converting parts of its department stores into co-working offices in partnership with WeWork. Saks parent company Hudson's Bay plans to open the first 5 spaces called Saks Works. What a terrible name, in the New York City area next month. As somebody who had to just say it, it does not roll off the tongue.
No.
WeWork would staff and operate the offices while Saks would maintain the lease or the ownership of real estate. Interesting.
It is interesting. It's a sort of twofold strategy, right? You give remote employees a place to work that isn't their house, and you put to use all of this brick and mortar real estate space that is becoming increasingly outmoded, right? I mean, are people even really going to department stores anymore? But I got to say, when I read the story in the Journal yesterday, is there a bigger winner of the pandemic than WeWork? I mean, this is a company we were talking about a couple of years ago going out, in the process of going out of business. It got its hide saved by SoftBank, just as this massive shift in how people work started, and maybe they're going to be okay after all. I mean, honestly, I read this. I was like, I would do that. I would go to a WeWork and do work from home out of there. I'm sick of working out of my house. Maybe it'd be cool.
And even for smaller companies that are rethinking, have realized that they can pretty much operate well remotely or with some hybrid model. Maybe they just book 1 day a week in a WeWork for a big meeting and get people in person. WeWork, it could be a real success story. They've obviously got rid of Adam Newman. They have a new CEO. Right. As long as they stay in their lane. The problem with Adam Newman and his WeWork was that they wanted to be the we of they thought they were taking over the globe. But yes, the idea of a co-working space is a very good one. They just need to focus on that.
Especially
I laugh
in the suburbs,
because you got to watch that. You've seen the documentary now, right?
Amazing. There's a book too. Apparently supposed to be very good.
Oh, yes. I heard an interview with the author, actually, of that book. He was on Pivot, one of our favorite podcasts.
Oh, yeah.
Besides Need2Know, of course. Okay, let's shift gears here. NASA's plan to send astronauts back to the moon by 2024. Not going to happen, at least not in that time frame. The space agency says in an internal report. So the reason is kind of shocking. The spacesuits are still years away from being ready. NASA's spending $1 billion on the next generation suits, but they're dealing with significant developmental delays because of COVID, of course, among other things. Elon Musk quickly piped up to offer help getting those suits ready, tweeting that SpaceX could do it if need be.
That's nice of him. NASA, just speaking of space here, also looking for people to live in a simulation of Mars for a year so they can study the effects of the Mars biosphere on the human body and the human mind. So they started taking applications last week for this experiment in which you would live in basically a Martian habitat inside a building at the Space Center in Houston for an entire year. So you'd have limited outside contact. You'd have to eat MREs. There'd be no windows. You'd be sort of like Matt Damon in that movie. But I don't know. Do you think you could do that for a year? Putting aside that you have like a family.
Yeah, I don't know why this is appealing to me for some reason. And if I wasn't married, if I didn't have a kid, if the situation worked for my life, you're basically taking a 1-year hiatus. You could probably write an amazing book or movie. You're going to help humanity in some capacity. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, no, that's sort of exactly what my thinking was, especially as I'm under all this stress just from new fatherhood and my family and everything. I was just like, this actually doesn't sound so bad, right?
I feel like my husband would definitely want to do this.
Yes.
Also because you're not really at risk. You're not going to Mars. You're not doing it on the moon. You're just doing it in this building. Yeah. One thing I wanted to just quickly mention, as we were saying, Elon Musk has piped in and saying SpaceX could get these spacesuits done. It points to just why private companies are able to just get things done and the government can't. And I had this conversation with my dad the other day because he drives me in to work every once in a while, and we sit in traffic all the time because of construction. And there are just these massive construction projects that are being done on highways across everywhere, and it's only going to get worse with the infrastructure package. But just for years. I mean, like there are packages, and you just see how many people are, and you have to do it, I guess, in a certain way. This is not a dig on construction workers, but you just see like how many workers are just putting cones down and whatever. And I have said to him, I would much prefer just shut down the highway, even for a month, okay, and just finish the project. And then open it back up, as opposed to inconveniencing everybody for hours and hours every day. And he had said, which was interesting, he said, look, they're building actually an Amazon warehouse right by my parents' house. And he's like, that Amazon warehouse was put up in, I think, a weekend. He said it basically, it went from a parking lot and an empty space to an Amazon warehouse in, I think, 48 hours. And it was just, there's a difference. I mean, I don't know what is the deal, but the fact that NASA can't figure out how to put spacesuits together, and Elon Musk, with a private company, can figure out the supply chain and all those issues, what does that tell you? I mean, that's really disappointing. Sorry for the rant.
I always think about that when I look at the New York City skyline, and you just see these buildings that are like 2 miles high, and they go up. It seems like they go up overnight now, right? But yeah, fair point.
All right, on that, and sorry for everyone dealing with that. I don't know, I guess because I'm in traffic hell. I mean, I basically sit in 3 hours of traffic every day, and it's mostly because of construction. Okay, that is what you need to know for Wednesday, August 11th.
All right, guys, see you mañana.